Hello everyone, I'm John Cogley, I'm the owner of Daniel Smith, and welcome to today's discussion. Appreciate that you could join me on this Thursday. Today what I thought I would do is go over some of the questions that have been asked. Those are always really important to me. Hello Mark, hello Letiza and Giovanni, hello Claudia. So I'm going to go over some of the questions you've asked. I'm also going to touch back one more time on how to read the color chart. I blew some of the pieces up so you could see it because some of the questions that are being asked refer right back to the color chart. For example, lightfastness, hello Linda, lightfastness, transparency, etc. And also what pigments are in certain colors. So you've asked some really, really great questions, and this is a neat way to be able to see that. Hello, Lauren. By the way, I'm going to ask Lauren McCracken if he would publish one of the articles he's just written, and it's the history of watercolor. It's very concise. I learned some things. I think you might enjoy it as well. So I'm going to ask him where that might be published. So let me see. I don't think the sound is on my side. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if the sound, I don't think it's on my side. Is anybody else having issues with sound? Hello to the UK. Hello, Sue. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the questions that were asked. So today might be a little shorter. What I thought I would do for tomorrow is many of you asked about ground. So I'm going to go back to the office and grab all the 6 colors of ground: the black, the titanium white, the pearlescent, the buff titanium, the transparent, and the gold. And I'm going to bring those back with me tonight, and I'm going to lay them over different substrates so you could see on Friday what that looks like. If you have any other questions as refers to the ground, let me know so I can play with that tonight and show you tomorrow during tomorrow's session if you happen to listen to that. What question was asked, can you use the watercolor ground in the laundry process? You can't. There's just no way to protect it. The laundry would be so abrasive, it would ruin it. So someone said the sound is off by default. So you might want to check the sound on your side, but I'm getting the majority of viewers are being able to hear. So thank you all for responding. Ultramarine blue, is it the same pigment across all brands? No, there's always, for any particular pigment, there can be many different shades. So even though you might, for example, see PV19, pigment violet number 19, that's quinacridone. There's 3 different shades, one giving you rose, one giving you red, one giving you violet, and they're all PV19. So there can be different shades, and the shades really are going to account for what you actually see. Advice on re-wetting a tube that may have dried. Easy. You just undo the saddle crimp and drop distilled water till you get to the desired consistency, and then paint with that. Essentially what you're left with is a very big pan in the shape of a tube. Do the quinacridone's vibrancy dull over time? No, they do not. And I'm going to show you how to read the color chart here, but they do not. They're absolutely perfect pigments. They're high strength, they're high intensity, and they do not dull over time. Over time, 100 plus years. We've tested out to 100 plus years. So I would say the answer to that's going to be no. They remain vibrant. Juliet. Hi from Holland. Oh, Holland's beautiful. Miss it this year. So Carolyn was a member of the Guild of Weavers, and she just wanted to say that dyes aren't the property in your paint. She's right. You don't want to use dyes. Dyes are going to be very, very, very fugitive. We're going to talk about Lightfastness today, just so you know what Lightfastness is. Lightfastness is different from transparency, for example. They're different properties, and we're going to touch over those just as a recap. I don't have the phthalos with me, but I will. Yeah, I have the phthalos. I'll show the phthalos one more time because I was asked about that. The watercolor ground, just so we touch back on that one time, you can have the watercolor ground look like cold pressed paper by how you apply it. So tonight when I play with it, I'll apply it smooth, and I'll also apply it rough. And I do that with a sponge by lifting up the sponge across the ground, and that lifts it and creates that kind of rough texture. But I'll do that and show it. I would show you how I do it, but remember it takes 24 hours, so you don't really see much if I'm doing it wet. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like dry. Oh, it's always, look at that, 111 degrees in Glendale, Arizona. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of jealous for a day, and then it's too hot for me, but that's beautiful. Okay. So Linda Dahl purchased a painting from Robert Wood. Robert Wood does beautiful golf scenes, etc. He's many other types of paintings, and she said some of it actually disappeared because it was fugitive. Is the same pigment has different Lightfastness under different brands? Yes, you know, what you see all comes down to the pigment, and the pigment has different grades, and people buy different grades for different price points. If you're making something student grade or less, you're not going to be using the best pigment, whereas for making it for professional, you want to use the highest Lightfastness that's available. And then you have to test it, and you need machines and chemists to be able to test it. And we have both of those. So one of the other questions was on alizarin crimson. And as alizarin crimson, does it use anthracoid red? And I wrote that down here. I thought that was a good question. Thank you for asking it. That was Helen Garcia. Yes, Helen, it does use anthracoid red, but not just anthracoid red. It uses anthracoid red, it uses perylene scarlet, and it uses quinacridone red. So 3 pigments to make up the permanent version of the permanent alizarin crimson. And yes, one of those is anthracoid red. It's easy to find that out. If you look at our color chart, hello Tess, it's right on the color chart. So very easy to find those answers out. Thank you for asking that. Someone asked, Janet Highland asked, does Stella Canfield have a set? All I can say, Janet, is stay tuned for that. That question will be answered. Marianne asked, does Daniel Smith have a specific book describing all about these colors? No, we've done many responses on our website and on Facebook, but not a particular book that has all the qualities. Somebody that has a huge amount of the qualities of the pigments would be Jane Blondell out of Australia. Jane is a colorist. She really knows all about pigments, etc., and a very, very wonderful person as well. Do we have watercolor artists that work for Daniel Smith? Some of my staff are watercolor artists. but we don't have anybody that is not working in the company that, so no one outside. Do we supply anywhere in Hawaii? Yes, we do. So the Daniel Smith site and has a locator, which will tell you for any country, and then within any country, any particular area where there's a Daniel Smith retail store or where it's available. And it's available in many places in Hawaii. Hawaii is just it's a wonderful market. Hello from Seattle. Yeah. You know, I'm going to, Suzanne, ask about the ET and the 24 pan set. It's just really how fast, I'm thinking probably 2 months, because it's how fast it goes from us to distribution, and then from distribution into retail. And many retailers are still just starting to open up. Here in Seattle, we just are moving, may not be there at right this moment. It was curbside. And so many retailers have not opened their store where people come in, so they haven't ordered. But what I'm going to do tomorrow, thank you for putting that, I'm going to bring the 24 pan set and the 2 12 pans, and we're going to wet those out and show you the colors that are in each set. So at least you'll be able to see. Hello, Jansen from Malaysia. And hello from New Zealand. You have a beautiful country and great people. Very, very, very nice people. The Soto store right now, it's I've decided not to open it up because of curbside business. It really depends on when the governor is going to go into phase 2. And it has not been, phase 2 has not gone. For all of those all over the world, here in Washington State, our governor has set different phases of when businesses can do something. Phase 2 opens up a business, opens the doors, and that has not been decided by the governor yet. Okay. So lots of questions were about the grounds, which is why I'm going to take the time to show the grounds tomorrow. So please, any questions you have, even when we've stopped today, ask questions, and I'll try to incorporate those into tomorrow's session. How long can you store tubes? You can store tubes for a long, long time. Given you don't open them, they should stay pretty reasonably moist for a very, very long time. And if they happen to dry out, you can always re-wet them. You can also vacuum seal them with little Food Saver vacuum sealers. Any plan to provide a botanical color exclusive in the future? That's interesting. I sent that to marketing. That was a very interesting question. Black watercolor paper. I'll bring some. I'll see if I can get a hold of some black watercolor paper and bring it in tomorrow, just so you can see what it looks like. And I'll give you the brand name that we have. There's probably other brand names as well. I use the black watercolor paper to do swatches of the luminescence. It just allows people to be able to see them much easier. Okay. So what I thought I would do real quickly, let me just show the phthalos, because I was asked a question about those. So let me show you the phthalos one more time. This is from last week. And as was mentioned, we do have a transparent pyrrole orange. I didn't show with the pyrroles, but here's the phthalos. This is phthalo blue. This is the red shade. This is phthalo green, yellow shade. This is phthalo turquoise. Excuse me. This is phthalo blue turquoise. This is one of our newest colors. This is phthalo yellow green. And this is phthalo green blue shade. And this is Phthalo Blue Green shade. Excuse me. Yeah, botanical color ground looks interesting. How can you please tell about color bias? So we'll go over the color bias, etc. when we have the color spectrum that we're working on. That will really answer that question because it'll show you the complement of each color and where within the spectrum, how close they are, how far away they are. It's really just just physics, but we're working on that right now. Botanical colors are colors that botanical artists would use. There's in the U.S. and probably in other places, there are botanical societies that use watercolors, and they'll do plants, etc. And many of them incorporate those into books and magazines, etc. Quite beautiful. Can you hold up the Phthalo Blues Red, Warm, and Cool? Phthalo Blue Green, Phthalo Blue Green shade, Phthalo Blue Red shade. I can do that. Red shade, green shade. Yeah, the phthalos are beautiful, beautiful colors. Phthalo Blue Red shade. Do I have the ultramarine over there, the ultramarine blue? I usually always have it around me. It could be up there. Let me find that out, and I know I have them here, and I'll show you the ultramarine versus the Phthalo Blue Red shade. Hello, Angela. Angela was, just did a video with Angela. Angela lives in the very corner of British Columbia. If you've never been to British Columbia, it's an absolutely gorgeous province. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It was fantastic talking with her. Okay, going to ask that too. Phthalo green looks so vibrant. Yeah, phthalo green is, so there's two phthalo greens. There's a yellow shade, and then there's a blue shade. Thank you. And there they are together. Here is the Phthalo Blue Red shade, and here is the French ultramarine. I'm sorry, ultramarine. So here's ultramarine blue, and this is the phthalo. Phthalo, ultramarine. So that's kind of what they look like. Oh, thank you, Andrea. So botanical artists use a lot of colors that have a translucence quality. So a lot of transparence. Beautiful, thank you. The swatches are on Lana Aquarelle. So Lana Aquarelle watercolor. And the reason my chemist uses that is he finds the sizing to be very consistent. So he's not a watercolor artist. He just wants to make sure from each time he tests that there's consistency, and Lana Aquarelle is very, very, very consistent. Some people like it and some people don't like it for watercolors, but the sizing is absolutely consistent. They don't mess with their sizing. Hello, Roja. Yes, it's cold press 140 pound Thank you, Letiza. Yeah, it's neat to have. Thank you for asking about putting the colors next to each other. It really gives you a contrast. So what I thought I would do for a moment is one more time, or as many times as you want, go over the watercolor chart. Because I just think it's very, very, very good for you to know. So I'm gonna, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Okay, so what I did is I took the watercolor chart, and it's very small, and I blew it up. So I blew up the pieces that are important. And so the most important thing to have is the information. And I'm sorry you have to read this. So the first thing is how we read information, and read the information from left to right. So lightfastness, transparency, granulation, opacity. And then this is the information about the lightfastness, how long it will last. And then we go over whether it's staining or not staining. Then granulation, yes or no, granulate or not granulate. And then transparency. So transparent, semi-transparent, or opaque. And as it was just said a little while ago, botanical artists are probably more in the transparency. Misha, who's a realist artist, he probably practices more in the transparency. So you can do layering, etc. So I just took a picture of one of the colors, and it is quinethalone yellow. Quinethalone yellow. And this number right here is just the series. So it's a series 3. Series 3. We have series 1, 2, 3, and 4. The higher the series, the more cost. Quinethalone yellow, because this is pigment yellow 138, a single pigment. A single pigment means somebody created it. So we use the name of the creator. In this instant, it was I will help you with that, Terry. I will send it to you, the spreadsheet. In this case, it was a chemistry house, and this is what they called it, quinethalone. Then we look at what it's available in. And here you would find out if it's available in 5 mil, 15 mil, stick, or pan. Okay, that's available. Then here's the characteristics. And the first one is for lightfastness. And this is a lightfastness of 2. So a lightfastness of 2 means we've used the xenon phaedometer to test this to 100 years. And that's why it's a 2. If it were 100 plus, it'd be a 1. Okay. The 2 is for staining. And remember, staining is a 1, it easily lifts off. 2, it leaves a little bit of a color. 3, more of a color. 4, it's not moving. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This no is no, it doesn't granulate. It's either no, it granulates, or yes, it does. This is a no. So no, it doesn't granulate. This is for opacity. So this is a semi-transparent color. That just tells you when you look at that you can do a mix of 1, 2, or 3 colors, but not more than 3, because you're going to start to get into mud. If it were transparent, you could do a lot more layering. Okay? And then the pigment. This is pigment yellow 138. It doesn't tell you the shade, it just kind of gets you in the area, pigment yellow 138. So over a cup of coffee, this allows you to really say what it is you want to pick as a color. For example, if you said, I want to do a lot of layering, you would look at this characteristic and probably go more for a transparent, because you could do more layering. If you said, I want to pick up certain areas of my paintings so I could put another color there, then you'd want to make sure this is probably a 1. Because if it's non-staining, you can lift it up way better and then put another color there. If you didn't want any granulation, for example, Misha, who does realist art and doesn't want granulation on a particular painting that he's doing, like a car, then he'd want to make sure that says no and not yes. So many times I'm asked, well, you know, I can get 9 colors and I can mix those colors any way I want, so I only work with 9 colors. And that obviously that could be very true for you. If, however, you want absolute control, because if any one of those colors is granulating, you're going to get granulation. I mean, that's just the way it is. Granulating colors impart that characteristic to other colors. If you wanted no granulation, then you want to choose colors that don't granulate. And that's the beauty of understanding these very small number of variables, is you can read a color chart and know exactly what's going to happen before you ever open the cap of that tube of paint. It's actually quite, it's very easy. And once you get good at it, which takes like 15 minutes, you can really, it becomes a tool in your toolbox. You're no longer held by the paint. You're the master over the paint, because you're deciding what you're using and why you're using it to get the result that you want. And it becomes all about you as the painter. So if you have any other questions about that, please let me know and I'll answer any questions you have, because it's probably one of the most phenomenal tools. And then as Lauren answered for the brush, understanding your brush and how much water it holds and how to unload it, again, is a tool in your toolbox. And probably lastly would be your paper, and what kind of paper, how much sizing, what the weight is, etc., would be another piece of information. So then you have all the information about all of your tools. And to me, I always kind of like that. Any plans to come out with updated dot cards with 260? Yes, at some point we're going to come out with those. Right now we have a lot of the 238s. So probably when the 238s, when we're done with those, also how many cards or how many pieces of paper that takes. But yes, we're certainly looking at that. Thank you, Andrea. I think the color chart is really quite interesting. I was also asked another question that I didn't bring up, and it was on the question was, are all the natural colors listed in the Primitex? And no, they're not. Primitex are ones that we source the mineral and then process the mineral into pigment and then paint. There are other ones that we buy from other companies, and while they're certainly natural, they're part of our general watercolor, because we don't process that ourselves. So Primitex are ones that we process ourselves, from mineral into pigment into paint. That's interesting. So Joy has on every paint, including the value of each color in her pans. It's what I've seen from many of the artists taking part in your studio or in the artist studio, is the vast majority so far have done interactions of their colors before they ever use those colors to do a painting. Kind of as a non-painter, I always thought that, well, artists would know the paint so much they would just go and start painting, and that's just not what I've seen. I've seen there's a lot of testing and how the colors are going to interact with each other. It's so very interesting to learn. If you love knowledge from other people, it's a great way to hear how other people do things. Yes, you're very welcome, Agnes. I think the more that I can share, the more that we can share with each other, because I learned some from some of the things that you write. It's beneficial all to everyone. Learning is something that we can all help each other with. Thank you, Tess. Look forward to seeing you in your beautiful country of Belarus. It would be great for the Primitex chart to include a note on each color for the country. So it's really, it's almost like our label. There's just so much room to be had. And so, Caroline, what we do is we have on the Primatech, where it's found, we have what the mineral looks like, we have a swatch, we have the pigment, and then we have a whole story of where it comes from. So we have that, and what I'll do is let me write that down. I will send you a link of where that can be found. Link of Primatech story and link to spreadsheet. Okay, I will do that. Yeah, so what we do with the luminescent is, although it's not seen to, this part, it's hard to get the print jobs to look as good as the swatches. They never do. But actually what you're seeing here is you're seeing the color over black and the color over white. It just does not come out that well. Where it comes out much better and where it can put it much better is on the web. So let me see what that looks like on the website. Luminescent black line to see. That's very good. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, it's very difficult when the printing companies, because it's like seeing paintings on a computer and then looking at the original. They're just never the same. There's different hues that come out, different vibrancies that come out. But thank you. Those are good ideas. I appreciate those. Yeah, so what I'll do, that's a good thing too. What I'll do is tonight, what I'll do is I only have so many of the colors here at my house. Let me find out the 200, there's 238. I'll find out the difference between the 238 and the 260. And let me dot those out real quick, and I'll show you what those look like on the color chart. I mean, it won't be a really big, huge color chart. I'll try that, but I'll certainly do something where you can see them all. So I'll have an addendum of just the colors that are part of the 260 that aren't included in the 238. I like that, and I'll be able to show you what those look like. Yeah, I always think when I do presentations, especially when I'm meeting with people, especially young people, it's really getting across. You don't have to be scared of art. It's a beauty. You don't have to be scared of physics, and you don't have to be scared of chemistry, because when you look at a painting, it's really where physics, where chemistry, and where art all come together to create beauty. And I think if we could show people, especially young people, the beauty first, and then these are the things that make up the beauty, there wouldn't be people scared of physics, there wouldn't be people scared of art, there wouldn't be people scared of chemistry. They would almost look like as if we want to taste a beautiful cake. It does really take some chemistry. I mean, it's pretty easy chemistry, 2 eggs, X amount of milk, but it's chemistry nonetheless to make this beautiful thing that we all enjoy. And art is something that I think as humans, we all enjoy. And it's really how we embrace. So I love the part of how we can teach young people to embrace that. I'm at home and Amazon just delivered my package, which makes all the devices, of which I have probably 15 different devices in the house, that all play Amazon music and have lights that go off when the Amazon man goes to the front door. So if you heard that, that was Amazon making a delivery. I use a Sharpie on my set of dot cards. Just thought it would be cool if we were already. Oh, let me read about that more. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So draw a line to differentiate between the transparent and the black background. I like that. Back to the stain number is equal to how easy paint lifts off applied, even when totally dry. So staining, let me think about that. Even when it's dry, if it's a 1, we test them not on wet, we test them on dry. So if it's a staining on 1, it wasn't tested on how it lifted when it was wet, it was how it lifted when it was dry. So the answer to your question is yes. You have a better chance of removing something that's staining while it's wet. Staining is still staining. It's the characteristic of the particle size and particle shape. But sometimes you can move something a little bit easier when it's wet than when it's dry. When we give it the numbers that we give them, it's from dry. So we're running a wet brush across a dry color and then determining the staining characteristic. I hope that answers your question, Misha. It's a very good question. Who is my favorite artist? Oh boy, I have a lot of favorite artists in a lot of different mediums. So I don't have just one, because I love acrylics, I love watercolors, I love oils, I love abstracts. In my house, I probably have in this house probably 70 paintings. At my business, my overflow is at my business, so I put the paintings up in every office. I probably have another 120 that are on people's walls. And then the third overflow is flat files, and I probably have 5 flat files that all have 6 to 7 drawers apiece. So I'm an avid collector, and I love all styles. You can see one in the background behind me, that's a pastel. One on the wall over here that you can't see. Oh, here, I'll turn it so you can see it. That is an oil. That is of the viaduct here in Seattle that now has been knocked down. And then throughout the house, I have acrylics and watercolors. I have some prints. I have a print that was made with a stone, and the stone was about 7 feet, which makes it very unique and is very, very beautiful. I just love color. I love color, and just I have one of Stella's inside of my TV room, and there's times I just turn the TV off and I just look at it, because it's in some part it's whimsical, and it's pretty, and when I look at Thomas Scheller, for example, I love that he was in drafting, because it looks very I love the lines. When I look at Lord McCracken's and I see the amount of time he takes to be able to do a painting, it's quite beautiful to me. When I look at Misha's, they're beautiful, and Giovanni's paintings are beautiful. So, boy, I would be really hard pressed to pick one. You're all so many unbelievable artists, and speak to me in different ways. But thank you. Yeah, my brother-in-law was one of the companies that bid on taking down the viaduct, and I love the viaduct here in Seattle. We have a thing we call the viaduct. It went around the city, and it was beautiful to see it in summer. You could see the mountains, and you were raised up about 50 feet. It's I'm sorry to see it go. Progress, I guess. Now it's an underground tunnel, so it seems like we're all getting tunnels all over the world. Yeah, life working from home is pretty interesting. There's some days I forget what day it is. I have to ask Alexa what day is today, because every day can be a work day. I get calls from all over the world. It's actually quite interesting. I probably shouldn't say this, but I miss work. I love to go and talk with my staff. I love to meet with them. I love to have meetings. What are they working on? What ideas do they have? I find it, that's why I like this, because it's very similar. It's asking very smart people questions. I miss it. Ah, Marcella, I don't speak Spanish. Um, and I can only guess what you're saying. But do we have products in Mexico? We don't have products being sold in Mexico right now. It's definitely, we want to be there. I think Mexico City, Mexico in general, phenomenal artists. Claudia, who uses the product, is a phenomenal artist. I enjoyed having in the artist studio with her. So would love to have it be in Mexico way more than what it is. Looking for that. Looking forward to that. Ah, thank you, Angela. That's nice. Yeah, the Suzanne, the primitives are very interesting. I always tell people, they ask me what are the characteristics of the primitex? Well, one is they're from the earth, so it kind of ties you back through the eons with other people that have used, etc. So, but the interesting thing with the primitex is their granulation, and it's kind of like boxing versus martial arts. With a quinacridone or a pyrrole or perylene, they're just perfect colors. I mean, they're just perfect. Everything about them is uniform. All the particles are all uniform. They're all the same weight. They're all the same size. They're all the same shape. And you can really kind of beat them up. Whereas the primitex, it's more like martial arts. And it's not about beating them up. It's actually understanding the energy and playing with the energy. Letting them go their way, but kind of guiding them along. And the more you can do that, the more beautiful they are. And there's quite a few artists that have really embraced that, and their paintings are just marvelous. A lot of them in the artist studio will show you the primitex. George Politis, Angus McEwen. There's just a lot of artists. Thomas Schaller uses jadeite, which is a granulated color. So a lot of artists are using those colors, the granulation part of it. Joanne, what I said is I will bring in the colors that aren't part of the 260. So right now we have a 238 dot card. I'll bring in the other colors and do a quick dot card here so you can see what's not part of that, just so see if it's of interest to you. So there are dot cards that come in little groups of 4, and those are actually a product that's being sold. And there's Marvels, and there's at least 2 of them, and they're in sets of 4. I'll show you those. Yeah, not all of the product makes it everywhere. There's several companies that do a great job in carrying all of the product. I mean, it's a lot of product. So not every retail store has them, but can get them. They're open that anybody can get them. What are the two sets?
Mineral Marble and Confetti.
So one's called Confetti, one's called Mineral Marvel. And what I'll do is I've showed those before, but I'll show you those tomorrow as well. But in general, what we do is we provide an $18 dot card to artists that are showing our product, so they can show their students why they like a color and what those colors are. So yes, as Angela says, they do have enough to do a small painting. They were really I was asked all over the world, can you tell me about a color? And you can only go so far in telling somebody about a color. I find it much easier, and that's what the dot cards do. They allow someone to see the color, and not only see the color, but actually play with it so they get the tactile feel of the color. Oh, so Carolyn talked about she didn't start using granular colors, but now she does, and she enjoys them. I think that's true of all things in life, and I think that's the fun part of life. Is if you knew everything, I don't think it'd be that fun of a life. So it's nice learning. I like that challenge. It's a fun challenge, and it's good that we all have that, especially artists, because it ties into that creative thing that's in the soul about how to express, how to use things in ways that have not been used before. I really, really embrace that. Well, thank you, Kristen. The confetti is a really kind of interesting set. And the dots are way bigger than a normal dot. They're multiple times as big. So Denise, you can get a color chart. They're usually at your store, your local store, or your local store can order them for you. No, we don't make dot cards in custom. We provide dot cards to our brand ambassadors and artists that we believe love to get the message across to their students. So it's they're not custom. Yeah, it's interesting to see. We're putting together right now on the website all the different artists and their dot cards. All the different artists and their dot cards. I just interviewed Raffaele from Italy, and he has his dot card in three dot increments, and each one is a triad that he uses to create paintings. So they all look at them in different ways. It's actually very interesting. Yeah, I believe Michael's has limited colors because they have the 5 mils, and the 5 mils standard is about 88 colors. Oh, so you're right. Michael's has fewer. They have 36. But it's enough to get people interested in the colors. I mean, if you love colors, Joy, they get interested in the colors, and then they find there's a broader line.
You can buy everything online.
Yeah, the granite colors are very interesting to do wood texture looking. Certainly they lend themselves for leather because of the cracking ability they have, or at least it looks that way, to look like old rusted machinery, which makes sense because many of them are oxides, and oxides are metals that have corroded. So they look like that because they are that. So it's really very interesting to use them. Yeah, it's interesting to see what artists do with the dot cards. It's very interesting. Yeah, Michaels doesn't carry a very large selection of the 5mm. They actually carry about 36, and there's roughly 80, almost 90 of the 5mm available. Hello from Bellingham. Yes, neighbors to the north. So if you want to leave a message on things that you want to see, I can grab those from the my office and bring those in. Excuse me. Okay, so tomorrow what I'll do is I will bring in the grounds. I'll bring in the dots that aren't part of the 238. I'll make some. I'll bring in the black paper. I'll show the mineral marbles and the confetti, which are the sets of 4 dots. They're quite large dots, so you can see those. I'm going to create rough and smooth with the ground, and I'll show you how I've done that. I'm going to use a sponge to create the rough, and I'm going to use a foam brush to create the smooth. And I'll probably put it on, you could put it on anything. You could put it on wood, glass, plexi, metal, etc. So I'll pick up some substrate just to lay it on, but it will be, by the time I show you tomorrow, it will be cured. So you won't see me doing it live, you'll see the cured version. And tomorrow I'll bring in, the 25 pan set. No, what I'll show you tomorrow is I'll bring in the 24 color pan set and the 212, and we'll wet those out. We will wet those out live, so I have to figure out how to show you that. Probably move this phone around so you can actually see me do it. But I'll do those all wet so you can see what they look like. Well, thank you, LaDonna. So LaDonna works at Michaels. Michaels been, Michaels is wonderful, and they get the message out here in the U.S. through every single state. So it's wonderful to have them. Wonderful to have you. Thank you. I would say it's almost fun work versus homework. Tomorrow I start at 10:30, and that's because that way, for many people, this is really late at night. Thank you for taking the time to watch it. It allows people in other places to be able to see. But tomorrow would be 10:30. So it's 2 o'clock on Thursday, 10:30 on Friday. Yeah, the 24 palette is actually quite beautiful, and with that you get a free 24 palette. So it's very, very nice. And I'll show you how, at least I'll show you by profile, that it's a series of layers that are dried. So I need to take pictures of that so you can see that. We fill each one of the pans up, and then it dries, and we fill it up and it dries, we fill it up and it dries, and finally, so they all dry at different rates, but we weigh them, so everything is by weight. And it's roughly a 5mm tube that makes up a half pan. It's a lot of paint. It's a lot of paint. Yes, that's Pacific time. It's Seattle time, so Pacific time, yes. Well, I wanted to thank all of you for watching. I do read your comments. I love your comments. If there's something that you want to see tomorrow, please leave it in the comments or leave a message, and I will bring that in, or try to bring it in tomorrow. Well, thank you, Kristen. It's neat. Many of the other people watching this, as you can see, will answer questions for you. I think that's one of the beautiful things about watercolor, the watercolor groups, the watercolor societies, and watercolors in general, is the sharing of information. And there's just so much that you can also learn on the web. There's YouTubes, there's just a lot of information. So I love that about watercolorists. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all very much for watching. I wish you health and safety. And if you're with me tomorrow, you'll see some of the stuff we've talked about. If not, I post these and you can just watch the post at your leisure. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.